CBS Atlanta News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Whitney Houston's untimely death has raised questions about her struggles with alcohol and prescription drug addiction. Today on Public Affairs on Peach, we are putting the spotlight back on addiction. Good Sunday morning to you, everyone. I'm Brandon Rudat. It'll be probably weeks before we know for sure what exactly Whitney Houston died from, but there is speculation out there that it was from alcohol or a drug overdose. It was a struggle that Houston admitted to.
Whitney Houston was America's sweetheart, rising to pop stardom in the 1980s and inspiring a generation of younger singers. Her life came to an abrupt end here at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She was pronounced dead in her own room on the 4th floor.
We have no obvious signs of anything at this time. We're still too fresh, and it's currently being investigated. Our detectives are upstairs right now.
Houston was scheduled to appear at a pre-Grammy party here at the hotel. It was hosted by Clive Davis, the music producer, who discovered her. The daughter of gospel singer Cissy Houston, Whitney first started singing in church and later doing backup vocals for artists like Chaka Khan and Jermaine Jackson. Her 1985 self-titled debut album was a hit factory and sold millions. The song, Saving All My Love for You, got Houston her first Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal. She went on to become one of the top-selling artists in pop music history with more than 55 million records sold in the U.S. alone. Houston gave a rousing rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl back in 1991. Her talent even expanded to the big screen in movies like The Bodyguard, which featured her hit remake, I Will Always Love You. But Houston's professional successes were tempered by personal turmoil, like her tumultuous marriage to singer Bobby Brown. The pair divorced back in 2007 and share a daughter, Bobby Christina. Houston also had an ongoing battle with drugs. She admitted to abusing cocaine and pills. Her voice showed the trouble, turning raspy and low.
She's lost a quality to her voice. She hasn't lost her artistic instinct.
Houston went to rehab and declared herself drug-free in 2010, but there were missed concert dates and public meltdowns. Houston's death came on the eve of the biggest night in music, the Grammys.
Well, he is one of the leading doctors in drug addiction, Dr. Michael Fishman with Talbot Recovery Campus, joining us here this morning. Dr. Fishman, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Certainly kind of the news, everyone really talking about Whitney Houston's death. And I think it really just kind of puts a spotlight back on an issue, right? We're not really sure what exactly she died from. It could have been an overdose. It could have been her alcoholism. We don't really know for sure, but it has put a spotlight back on addiction for a lot of people out there, and a good kind of conversation that people really should be having about prescription drugs. A lot of people think when they hear drug addiction, they're thinking of the hardcore drugs out there. You got your meth, you got your cocaine, right? A lot of people don't consider prescription drug addiction as serious as they probably should, right?
That's exactly right. And addiction, drug abuse, and addiction is over the top. It's basically 90% of what I see today.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the shocking statistics out there is that more people are dying from prescription drug overdoses than all the other drugs combined.
I think that's exactly right.
I mean, why do you think that is? Why do you think people are using more prescription drugs now than, let's say, marijuana or let's say cocaine? Why?
Well, number one is they're easy to get. Number two is they're sold on the streets. You can get them from doctors. People go doctor shopping. And people, for some reason, think they may even be safer because they're prescription, but they don't realize the dangers, not only with the drug itself alone, but in combination with other prescription drugs.
Yeah, and I think if you have a normal conversation with a couple people, you're at the cafe, right? People are like, hey, how do you just overdose from, let's say, Xanax? Or is it a combination of prescription drugs and alcohol that can be deadly?
Absolutely. It can be the prescription drug by itself that can be deadly. A combination can be deadly. And it doesn't even have to be in combination with alcohol. Drugs such as Xanax or Klonopin, which are very commonly seen as a drug of abuse, by themselves can cause respiratory depression and death. The opiate type drugs, which we're seeing an epidemic of, such as roxicodone and hydrocodone and Percocets, can by themselves be fatal. But what I see,
those drugs were so regulated, though, aren't they?
they're very regulated, but they're very, very easy to get. Now, the Georgia legislature recently passed a law which hopefully will regulate them more, but they're still very, very easy to get.
Somebody comes to Talbot Recovery Campus with a prescription drug addiction. Do you typically see somebody that has that addiction has suffered from other addictions as well, alcohol and other drugs like cocaine or like meth?
Well, yes and no. It's not uncommon for somebody that presents with a Xanax dependency or a oxycodone dependency to have abused marijuana in the past or other drugs such as cocaine or meth or whatever. But it's not uncommon to see people start off with drugs like that as well.
Yeah, people who get injured, they go to the doctors, right? They break a leg or they go and have surgery and doctor says, well, here's some pain medication for you. Could that instance right there, as soon as somebody gets their hands on a muscle relaxer, could that trigger an addiction?
It could. It absolutely could. You know, physicians do try to treat pain, and ethically they have a need to do so. But some people, when they get an opiate in their body for pain relief and realize how good it makes them feel, if they already have a predisposition to addiction, if there's a genetic predisposition, a family history, or even if there's not, there is some risk of dependency if you stay on them for a long enough time or take a big enough dose.
Do you think people take that topic seriously?
I think some people do. I think some people don't. I think, you know, parents need to be very aware of what they keep in their prescription cabinets. The young adults are very wise at what can be abused and what can be used, and you've got to be very, very careful.
What are you seeing are kind of the, I don't know, maybe street drugs that are out there, prescription drugs that are really dangerous right now that you're seeing a lot of kids getting their hands on?
The most common ones I'm seeing are drugs like Xanax or Klonopin, which are in the family of benzodiazepines.
What does that do?
Well, benzodiazepines are considered sedative hypnotics. They slow down the central nervous system. It's very common to actually black out on these drugs. And I've had cases where people will take one or two of them, black out, and then down the rest of the bottle and don't even remember. If you add alcohol to those drugs, it's more than doubly depressant for the brain and spinal cord. And blackouts are very common. They're extremely dangerous. People lose inhibitions, frequently get in their cars and don't even know they're driving.
Is it hard for somebody who, let's say they've been on Klonopin or they've been on these other muscle relaxers, is it hard to wean themselves off of it?
It's not only hard, it's dangerous. With a drug like benzos, like Xanax or Klonopin, it can be life-threatening to come off of them. You can have seizures. It really needs to be medically managed. Whereas a drug like an opiate, like the oxycodone or the Percocets, those alone, the withdrawals aren't life-threatening, but you feel like you want to die.
All right, stay with us because when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about doctor shopping and how easy it is for a patient who is an addict, very easy for them to go doctor shopping, go to several different doctors and get several different prescriptions of the same medication. All right, more with Dr. Fishman when we come back.